What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to Park to Prem here with Town or Town. Today, it's the end of Season 9 review. It's episode number 79 as well. And this is the second upload of the day. So if you missed last episode, which was a bit of a where are they now, looking back over some past greats to see what they're getting up to, do make sure to go check out that. And today we're going to go for our big comprehensive end of season review. This is our third year doing this kind of slightly new format. You guys seem to be loving it, which is absolutely superb. And let's just talk about things, shall we? Of course, this season has been played in the space of about a week, and I've had so much fun playing it. I feel like last year was disappointing, obviously. Let's get that out of the way first. We were going into Season 9, having missed out on promotion for the first time in our time here at Towler. We'd finished third in the league, made it to the playoffs, and then completely capitulated against Shrewsbury Town. And it felt like a bit of a... I don't know, there was two sides to it. There was the initial disappointment thinking, man, we are in a league here that I feel like we could have got out of on another season. We could have done more. We should have maybe done more. At the same time, however, it just left me feeling like promotion should be a breeze this year. And of course, we went into the season, we were season favourites to get promoted. We were media prediction first. And to be honest, this year's been a really good year just to, I feel like, refine down the squad, really develop a lot of our players and continue just to build in the infrastructure. So, of course, the training facilities and youth facilities have been upgraded this year. They are due to be upgraded again. We'll check if that happens, I guess, later on. We've also got a new stadium on the way. We obviously made some massive sales to start the year, which was pretty interesting. Just as a reminder, we sold £20 million worth of players. 3 youngsters, only one of which had really been a regular in the first team leaving us. And it kind of just felt like a bit of a move for the future, I suppose. Yeah, letting go of Bauman, Cece and Ericart. I didn't feel like with any of them, they didn't give me that irreplaceable vibe, that vibe that they were the chosen one, this, unmatchable player. And really what we've done with a lot of the money that we have spent this year, it's just reinvested it into youth to really, to continue to flesh out the team, to continue to do things. And because of the, slightly larger sums of money, I have been able to take risks. I've been able to spend that extra bit of cash on a player like Garrido here. I can afford to spend £600,000 on him. I'm hoping, obviously, longer term that's going to pay off, but as is the way with Football Manager, a lot of wheeling and dealing has to be done. And so if you're selling players for £10 million with sell-on clauses, then you're buying in a replacement or you have a ready-made replacement. I just feel like you're inevitably going to, slowly acquire money like we have, and then that can go into the training facilities. It doesn't even have to be reinvested into the squad. I mean, when you look at this, a lot of these players are just free transfers and players whose contracts were expiring. But it's, for me personally, it's one of the really rewarding things about Football Manager. I talked about it last episode, but this season has really been the first season where we've been able to completely flesh out the team. So, of course, expectations at the start of the year were pretty high. We made some, fairly big signings to the team, obviously. Players like Scott Ferguson, not those kind of signings, but there were, players who I was expecting big things on. Players like Michael Roof, who, whilst he came in as a free transfer, when I looked at him, I thought, that's a guy who should be, very good for this level. And as it turns out, he has been very good for League One level. I think Molyneux will come on to awards shortly, but he's got to be up there in terms of Player of the Year. 7.48 rating, signed this year, just as a reminder, for £71,000 from Wolverhampton Wanderers. He moved from Reading to Wolves a few years ago now for $3.5 million. So we got him for a pretty bargain price. And despite his lack of consistency, he's quickly emerged as a fan favourite. And I think he's been the guy who's been a real match winner for us this year, and a lot of our success, hinges on him. Of course, last year we played our 4-2-3-1. We had been playing it a few times. It was a system that we'd first rolled out upon getting promoted, I think, to League 2, I want to say. It might have been the season before. But the bottom line was that with this system, I thought we needed an extra man in midfield, and with us going into this year as firm favourites, I wanted to go back to a system that had served us really well, and with the emergence of Turnbull, with Molyneux, Roof, Sayer as well, lots of good goal-scoring threats, the idea of only playing one striker just felt a little silly, I guess. Sometimes you just have to adapt, and sometimes you build a squad to fit your system. I feel like it was one of those circumstances where, not really intentionally, but just kind of by accident, we slowly but surely built our squad to be kind of better fitting of a 4-4-2 again. So that's what we did, and of course it worked absolute wonders for us. So if we just look at the final league table, obviously we ran out champions, 99 points, only 1 point behind Charlton's total that we looked at last year as, the benchmark, I feel like, for this year. And in truth, it's been a pretty, I don't want to say chilled out season, but it's never really been at doubt ever since we changed systems. Of course, we didn't have the smoothest start to the year, and it was at the Bradford game in October that we made the system change. So prior to that, it'd been a bit hit and miss. A few wins, a few losses. We changed the system, and let's be honest, it's just worked absolute wonders, and you have to question why we weren't playing it before. It's kind of a ballsy call, to change the system in October, not giving it more than a couple of months. But because I knew that the 4-4-2 system worked, some of our players were very familiar having played that system before, it made sense for us to switch into it, and it's just worked absolute wonders. I mean, you can see looking through here, obviously, a sea of good results. We, of course, got to the FA Cup 5th round, maybe a few question marks about whether or not we could have gone a little bit further. Just as a reminder, we did crash out of a few other competitions like the League Cup, like the EFL Trophy. But this year, for me, having had domestic success for the first time last year, it wasn't really about the domestic success anymore. It was about, going on and going up. And, of course, we've had a very good year as a result. So let's start off by having a look at the end of season rewards, and interestingly in the awards, Andre Dessellers pipped James Molyneux to the award by 6%, but between them they got 86% of the vote. Dessell does have the better average rating, and much like last year, has just put in another absolutely scintillating performance. I do have my doubts as to whether or not he's going to be good enough for the championship, but as a deep line playmaker on support, he kind of fulfills the role perfectly, and I do want to give him a chance to do it again at a higher level. And I feel like, well, I'm hoping at least he is going to be a man to do it for us. Of course, Molyneux finishing not far behind. Already looked at his profile, but what a goal scorer he's been, our top league goal scorer in the team. He got signing of the year, he got young player of the year, he also got goal of the year against Crewe. I can't remember this goal off the top of my head, so hopefully it's going to load for us. I think in the last update, this might have actually broken, which is a bit of a shame. Or maybe it's just my skin. Either way, it doesn't seem like it's going to load again, which is unfortunate. But yeah, for me personally, Molyneux has just been an absolute game changer. I feel like it's going to be really interesting next year, actually, because we've got so many goal-scoring options. The likes of Roof, Molyneux, obviously Shvetsov is going to have a work permit, Turnbull. Big additions to the squad. And yes, I did mention Shvetsov last episode as a player who we were hoping would get a work permit. I'm pleased to confirm he's got the work permit and he's got a 5-year deal at the club. So another exciting player. In many ways, this is as good a player as you could expect us to sign in the summer. So the fact it's a player who's been at the club for a while is obviously a huge added bonus. One thing that I really do like, actually, is if we just look at homegrown status now, we've got quite a few players homegrown at club. Shuttleworth, Kosic, Turnbull, of course. Slightly further behind players like Leighton Stewart as well, Zach Gannon. A few players who are going to be grown at club soon too. Including, actually, Ronnie Williamson, who's going to get it next year. Mr. Dessa's going to be homegrown this year. Smolyo, I still want to extend the loan of. And I know that might seem like a bit of a shock because he's not been fantastic this year. But it's difficult, okay, because I feel like in Lycons he's not performed that great. But actually, his average ratings this year have been his best ratings ever. And I definitely feel like he did, do better in goal when we switched up our system. And there's no denying that he is a top championship quality player. The fact he's homegrown at club is obviously a huge bonus. At the moment, I don't think we can loan him. It might be a case of we have to wait for the season to end for him to return from loan and then see if we can get him in the turn of the new year. We've done it last year, so maybe we can do it again. Some people have asked, Jack, what would you do if Smolyo went? There is a player I've been looking at, and it's actually a Leyton Orient goalkeeper called Alvin John. He's 18 years old. He's capped at England's national team level for the under-21s. He's a good goalkeeper. He's not a great goalkeeper, and he might be a bit of an investment for the future. The truth be told, I'm still kind of thinking I want Smolyo back for another year if I can get him. But if I can't, this guy might be the chap to go for. The only downside is that I had him scouted before, so I'm a bit miffed about the fact the scouting's not there anymore. But yeah, you can see here they want like £10 million. So, and it seems like they're locked at 10 million, which means it could be a release clause because normally the AI would like try and meet you in the middle. But either way, 7 million is just far, far too much for a guy like this. You know, I wouldn't feel comfortable paying more than £2 million for a goalkeeper. It is the area of concern, though. There is absolutely no denying that. But yeah, in terms of overall awards, Dazelle, Molineux leading the way. Hugo, bit of a surprise perhaps to see him there, but he has been a standout player. The 24-year-old, of course, joined us in January of last year. Hasn't had the craziest average ratings, but has been an ever-present part of the defence this year. Has put in some really good performances. The kind of player that I'm very confident is going to make the step up to championship level. To me, I just feel like he's not got any major gaps in his game, I suppose. So in terms of my player of the year, I think I would actually give it to Molineux over Dazelle, simply because Andre Dazelle puts in lots of consistent performances, gets lots of assists, gets lots of goals, but doesn't tend to single-handedly win us games. I mean, Molineux has 12 assists, which is as many as Dazelle's got as well. That's another element of his game that really can't be underestimated. He has been a creative force in the team. 12 passing, 12 vision, that's pretty good for this level. Maybe not so for championship level, but as we've seen this year, it's helped him well. So I'd have Molineux down as my player of the year. In terms of surprise package, you know what? I'd probably go with Ronnie Williamson. I feel like he's really improved over the course this year and stepped things up. He's broken into the Northern Irish national team. Currently operating at League One level. We'll hope that that can kind of step up. I guess another player I'd throw into a similar boat is another centre-back, and it would be Vasily Ignatovic, who's just a player who's improved a hell of a lot this year. And, he has played 16 league games as a starter, so I would say he has been a surprise package. We signed him at aged 17 for £100,000 from Crewe in League 2, where he'd never played for them before. We gave him some chances in the first team for us, and he's kind of just done them. So I'd have him down as a surprise package, and also possibly one of the most improved players. Almost feel like that could go to either player. But actually, when I think about it, the player I would give it to is Dylan Turnbull. I wouldn't necessarily call this guy the surprise package, because I did think he could do a job for us throughout the year. But in terms of overall improvement, yeah, you know what? I think I'd give him the most improved player if we just look at him all time. So this is since he generated last year. Monumental improvements across the board. He's still only 18. He has been called up for he's only 17. He's 18 next month. He has been in the reckoning for an England under-19 call-up. So that is something that I would expect to see over the summer. I think he's more than good enough to do that. So I'd have him down as most improved. And then in terms of clubman, my clubman, I think it would be Shuttleworth. 19 assists this year. It's his 4th consecutive season at the club. It's one of his best seasons ever in terms of assist return. He's just been absolutely top draw for us, Russell Shuttleworth. He signed a new deal with the club, which is a 4-year deal, but it will get extended by another 3 years once we're officially promoted come the end of the year. So we've got 7 more years of this guy. Homegrown at club is obviously a massive bonus. And yeah, I'd have him down as clubman. In terms of disappointment, I mean, you can sort by, I guess, average ratings and look at who's not been good. I feel like Dimitri Seyer maybe has to fall into that bracket. He's on £5,000 a week. That's a bit too much money for what he's really offered us this year. 8 starts, 14 appearances off the bench. Hasn't impressed me. I think I've got to let him go, especially now that Shvetsov's got a work permit. He's injury prone, doesn't like big matches. I still think we might be able to sell him for a profit, but any kind of money would be good. I feel like after last year, where he only got half a season, you can give him the benefit of the doubt. He's now had a full year to prove himself, and he's just not been in the first team at all. So in terms of general team stats, we obviously looked at the goal scorers, Molineux leading the way. Michael Roof definitely deserves a mention. 16 goals to his name, and he's actually improved over the course of this year as well. You can see just not monumental improvements by any means, but for a player who's in his mid-20s, notable certainly. And I genuinely think when you look at him here, you'd say he probably is good enough to play for a championship club, and so he's a player you can definitely expect to see in the first team, or in and around the first team. I don't know if he'll be a nailed-on starter next year like he was for much of this year, but I think he's earned an opportunity at the very least. You can see here, by the way, he's only on £1,500 a week. He's got a 2-year contract left. We had a breakdown in talks just because he wanted about £6,000. And £6,000, whilst I can definitely afford it, I don't really want to be giving it to a player who I'm not entirely sure on how much he's going to be starting next year. He wanted to be an important player at the club, so I'm in the thinking of that we give him a few months into the new season. If he's performing really, really well, fantastic. Then we can give him a big contract. If he slips out of first team contention and isn't that same important player he's been this year, we can still at the very least, offer him a new contract, but hopefully his demands will be a little lower. At least that's my thinking there. But yeah, he's been, one of the big goal scorers. DKM as well, 13 goals, 7 assists. Has had another fantastic little season for us. Of course, he's in his 5th consecutive season at the club. If he plays for us in the Championship, it'll be the 5th different division he's played for, or played in for us. But comparing this year to last year, it's a shame the average rating hasn't been better. I feel like when he's scored and done well, he's done really well, but his lows have been a lot lower for DKM. He's not been a super reliable player, just has those flashes and moments of brilliance, which, to be fair, 12 goals for a wide midfielder, not to be scoffed at. In terms of assists, Shuttleworth leading the way, Molyneux, Dazelle there. Ryan Grant at right back might feel a little unfortunate to be, a player potentially on the chopping block with Mr. Dessa coming through, but I feel like at the right back position, we've got 2 players who are probably ready for Championship level between them. They're going to be battling it out for the same spot. It'll be very interesting to see who comes out on top. I think I want to say I may be leaning towards Mr. Dessa just because of my own personal biases, but actually in terms of assists, Grant's leading the way, but if we just look at it statistically, in terms of assists per 90 minutes, Mr. Dessa's actually done slightly better. He's just played significantly fewer games. That's an interesting one for sure. You guys can let me know who you'd play out of Mr. Dessa and Grant. I feel like for me it's a bit of a battle between the two. So anyway, let's have a look at league stats, where we appear, sparingly in and amongst things. Molyneux finished 2nd top goal scorer behind Ross Gascoigne. Dazelle and Molyneux getting the top highest average ratings in the team. Shuttleworth up there with assists as well as superb. Molyneux winning the Player of the Match award. If we just look at team detailed, I think this year might be the first year ever where we have a worse average attendance this year than we did last year. Last year, obviously same division, but last year we benefited from the fact that Sunderland were in our league and Sheffield Wednesday were in our league. Those 2 games brought us in massive crowds. That's not something that's been able to be replicated this year with the teams that entered the division. So that's definitely dragged down the average rating a little bit. I'm not overly concerned about it because we've always known that attendances were going to be a challenge here. Of course, in the coming years as we enter the Championship, the away crowd should hopefully compensate, and so we shouldn't see a repeat. Well, having been promoted, the average the average attendance are lower. They should be higher. We'll wait and see on that one. Obviously, you can see here our lowest attendance compared to other teams was half the amount of Ebbsfleet, who had the 2nd lowest attendances. I know some people have said, Jack, are you not concerned about that? I mean, I am, but we're a town with a population of 2,000 people, so I'm never really expecting, massive turnouts. In terms of net transfer spend, you can see we made a profit of 22 million. Rotherham made a profit of 14 million. And tragically, did they get relegated in the end? I think they did get relegated in the end. They made 14 million profit, I think I just said. And despite all of that, they ended up in the relegation zone, which is absolutely crazy. If I was doing a journeyman, that would be an interesting team to go to now, because I imagine from a financial perspective, they're swimming in money. If we just look at salary per year, we have the 4th highest salary. Rotherham up there at the top, so not too great for the team relegated twice in a row. But yes, very, very good performance by us, and we do have big wage spend, so there's kind of an expectation, I feel like, at this point for us to be doing that. Of course, we can justify our wages because of the amount of money we make through transfers. Anyway, let's have a look through a few more of these inbox items. So, season review, we're expected to make much of League One. We did exactly that. The expectations were high this year. We matched them, and our average attendance this year, 1,886. Obviously, we have the Where Are They Now items. If you missed the earlier episode today, and maybe you've just started watching this one, we did do a kind of Where Are They Now look back at some of our older players. We've got our club vision for the new year. Expectations for next year are a mid-table Championship finish. That feels reasonable, I think. I think we'll go with a similar thing for our players here. Can we get mid-table with the right additions? I mean, they love it. I love it. We could choose a training camp destination. Can we get an ooh in the chat? Scotland or the northeast of England? Let's go to the northeast of England. For some reason, I was expecting a more glamorous option there, but I guess we'll go with that one. So right, there should be a few inbox items here, and indeed there is. Okay, nice. Of course, we learned this last year, but after one continue, you kind of get all the facilities and stuff. So stadium news. The Towdor Stadium, it's a bit of a shame it's not named after us, is going to go ahead. It's going to cost £7.25 million, and they've been able to do it without any additional funding. That's probably going to see that massive amount of money we had in the banks dwindle. Yeah, we did previously have £14 million in the bank. That has now dropped. But that does also, I guess, cover the training and youth facilities being upgraded. And our youth category's been upgraded for the first time as well, which is great news. I must admit, I'm not completely versed up on how youth categories work. There's 4 different categories, if I'm not mistaken. Category 1 being the highest level. There's a load of different factors that go into it, but I guess one of them is our youth facilities. Anyway, Smoljo's been given a call-up for the Croatian national team. That's good. But yeah, so youth facilities 2.3 million, stadium is 7 million, so that's about £10 million we've just spent. The fact that we're doing it without any loan is huge, though, for long-term stability. There's some real clubs that I've managed in FM where they've got like big loan repayments every year as a result of, the stadiums. Their capacity, is worth noting, is only 7,500 for our new stadium. Obviously, that's still pretty good. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if that's going to be, big enough. If there's going to be enough room for expansions. It's difficult because if you don't know, in Football Manager, you can only have a new stadium built at a club. I think it's every 20 years, and so right now we're getting a stadium built as a team entering the Championship. And if the capacity has a limit, which all stadiums do, if say that it limits 15,000. We can never expand it beyond that until 20 years are up because of the way Football Manager works. And if we're racing through the leagues, I would like to believe that in, say, a decade's time, where we're a Premier League mainstay and knocking on the door of European football, a bigger stadium would be a little bit useful. But I guess we just have to make do with it. The big news here really is we're not having to take out a loan, so there's no extra debt incurred. The overall balance is a little bit low, and now you look at the transfer budget of 8 million and kind of question it. I'd almost be tempted just to redistribute some money into the wage budget, perhaps. I imagine we'll also be able to ask for the facilities to be upgraded again once they get done. I think that's going to be around October time. Yeah, the 20th of October apparently is when the training and youth facilities will be done. So it's a similar timeline to last year in many ways. But that is huge, really good progress. Interesting to see the board want a mid-table Championship finish. I guess they perhaps looked at Charlton's performance last year as a newly promoted team, and also Sheffield Wednesday's performances as a newly promoted team, and said that we should be falling somewhere between them. Next year, what would I like to achieve? I would like to be pushing for the playoffs. I feel like we've got such a young squad. I don't feel like there's any massive need of new additions. Like, if I was going to look at my team now, what would I actually add? Maybe a new centre mid and maybe a left back. It's tricky, because we've got young players in pretty much every position now, and I don't want to tread on the toes of their development. I guess it depends on the mindset I want to take. Do I want to go in and go, right, let's get out the Championship after 1 year? And if I'm going to think that, I've got to spend big. Or do I just say, you know what, that extra year we spent in League One helped us out. Maybe a few years in the Championship will help us out. I feel like a straight promotion to the Premier League could be a bit of a recipe for disaster, and I would be praying and hoping the board are just going to be content with us, going straight back down if that's how it has to play out. Worth noting, actually, we did have another mini kind of takeover news item thing. It's been like the last few where it didn't really have any substantiation. Just keep it in mind. Alexander Muckin, still not 100% happy with his time here, but I'm kind of trying to avoid it as best as possible. Anyway, if we just have a look at the team's general overview here, you can see ourselves and Kunwenda listed as legends. Icons, you've got Sonny Best, Leighton Stewart, and interestingly, Andre Dazelle has climbed up in there. Manasseh Mampala, Lewis Warrington, and Ryan Ferguson alongside DKM, also in the favourite personnel. So, the lawyers, we're doing our thing. We're plodding up through the leagues. I feel like next year's going to be a really big step up. But when you look at our facility screen now, it's starting to feel a little more real, a little bit more, I don't know what the right word is, but I feel like we're more prepared, I suppose. We still only got adequate youth facilities and below average training facilities, but the data analyst stuff we have improved this year. Obviously, our academy coaching and youth recruitment is still very good. I talked about it a few episodes ago with the youth intake. I am very, very excited by the young Bosnian that we've got coming through. I feel like I played it down a little bit, how much I was excited for him. I've gone away, I've thought about it. For Matasevic here, I feel like there's just a big future ahead of him. Right now, I'm training him as a shadow striker. Really want to just kind of try and improve his pace if we can. Really, his focus here should be on quickness as well, rather than passing. But I want to just see if we can get that athleticism out of him, because regardless of what position he plays, for me personally, I like that kind of spring in the step, that physicality that, really kind of athletic players can bring. And at 16, he's got room to try and, achieve that a little bit. Anyway, if we just have a look here at history and overview, obviously the chart is going to get updated very soon. In terms of record holders, you can see we had a good high attendance this year. In terms of average attendance, you can see what I mentioned before about how it has dropped down for the first time. But then again, when you compare it to where it was, just a few years ago now, I feel like we can be pretty happy with the progress we're making in the grand scheme of things. The Towler bandwagon is starting to get fleshed out, it feels like. If we just look at overview here, there's probably some facts that I'm going to miss and some interesting stuff, but Conwenda, 4 goals in a game. Mampala, goal after 11 seconds. Sam Brownhill was our youngest ever goal scorer back in 2019. He has retired, doesn't have a profile. Chimbonda also retired as a staff member, if you were wondering. I didn't cover that last time. Alexis Sanchez, by the way. Could we bring him back? Could we? No, he wants £6,000 a week. He wants more money than when he played for us. You can see various other stats here. One thing that might be interesting to look at is my manager profile. And just to look at stuff like total spend and total money recouped. I feel like with these end of season live comms, they're getting a little bit shorter. Obviously, last episode we did a little bit of an end of season wrap up anyway. But I feel like I've run through a lot of the stuff. I will have a quick look through the leagues in England because I know that's something that people like to look at. But yeah, if we just look at my history and my overview here, total value of players bought, 3.2 million. Total value of players sold, 33.5 million. That's a bit of a contrast, isn't it? I feel like that might swing the other way should we get promoted to the Premier League in the next few years. That's when we can really start to spend silly money if we so wish. But 481 games played, 308 won, 64% win percentage. We have scored 1,066. And you can have a look. The stats kind of speak for themselves, but I know for some of you, you're like stats junkies. You want to see them all. So yes, let's have a quick look through the leagues and what's been going on this year. I'm not going to look for it in too much detail because it's still going on, but you can see here Chelsea won the league, Liverpool second, Manchester City third, and Arsenal look like they're going to get fourth, although Manchester United still breathing down their necks. On the other side of things, Derby County have been relegated, but they're also in European football, so that could be interesting if we're playing against them next year. If we do want to go for a big promotion push, that might be one of our big promotional rivals distracted by European football, I suppose. Meanwhile, in the Championship, Swansea lost to Leicester. Of course, Swansea, the team that we very nearly went to, so it's going to be Leicester v one of these other teams in the final. Blackburn and Villa getting promoted. On the other side of things, Cardiff, Millwall and Northampton going down. I have had a look through their squads. One of the issues we've got really is the fact that most Championship teams are going to spend significantly more on wages than us. And I looked at Millwall and Cardiff. The players in their team that might be good enough to play for us want, £20,000 to £30,000. I don't have that kind of money, so that's always a little bit of a challenge, and I'm not entirely sure what we can do there. Anyway, just have another look at League One, because I know people are going to ask what's happening here. Rotherham, Colchester, Bristol Rovers and Ebbsfleet going down. Rotherham, obviously, the big surprise there. Shrewsbury, who we lost to in the playoff semi-final and lost in the final last year, only avoided a drop by 3 points. So they had a bit of a disaster of a year. Meanwhile, in League Two, Lincoln City promoted alongside Exeter and Plymouth. Sunderland could only get in the playoffs. Meanwhile, South Shields getting relegated. That's sad. They're a team that have really climbed through the leagues naturally, got to the Football League and have lasted less than a year, which is just a big shame, really, isn't it? They weren't predicted to stay up, and they couldn't do it. So anyway, in terms of plans for next year, I've talked about the squad. I don't see us signing a load of new players. I think maybe a new centre mid. We are starting to enter the era now where I think the majority of our starting 11 is going to end up being regens and fake players. Given the fact that we're now, going into our 10th season, that's not entirely surprising. But I might try and sign 1 or 2 real players if we can. I know not everyone's a fan of regens, but I feel like we have to accept when you start in the 10th tier, it's kind of inevitable that before you get to the Premier League, or at the very worst, I guess, when you get to the Premier League, it is going to be full of mostly regens. But at the same time, I feel like we've got some personalities in our ranks. They've all developed their own little traits. Obviously, Shuttleworth, the Bolton boy. Molyneux's just come in and torn things up. Turnbull just doing his thing this year as a real breakout talent. Mr. Dessa, Smolyo, I don't know what to make of Smolyo. On his day, he's absolutely incredible, and you can see here could be a leading Premier League goalkeeper, leading player for most championship sides. I hope we can keep him next year. That's my big wish. I think Smolyo we have to try and keep, but assume he's not here. Maybe a new left-back would be good in the centre of the midfield. I don't know. I feel pretty good about our team. Maybe I'm naive. What positions would you be signing if you were me? I think maybe a centre mid, but truth be told, with our very young squad, and given the fact that suddenly we don't have as much money as we once did in the bank, I'm kind of tempted just to stick with what we have and try and secure a comfortable mid-table finish with, you know, plenty of signs of improvement. I've got this mindset, to be honest, that even if we didn't get promoted, you know, in the next few years, give me 3 years in the Championship without making any signings, I could get this team promoted because of how much youth talent we've got coming through that we just need to nurture and allow to mature, I suppose. I think that's going to be the big challenge going forward. Anyway, in terms of next year, let's just discuss that briefly. I've talked about it already, but I think mid-table championship is really where I want to be. I don't expect to see sweeping changes to the first team. We may need a new goalkeeper. If we can keep Smolyo, I'd be quite happy with that. I know not everyone is necessarily going to agree with that. I think next year is very much about nurturing our talent and just, you know, I guess seeing them develop for next year. There aren't any real positions to address. It's a case of if we can hunt out some really good young signings for the future, fantastic. Just as a reminder, we've got a load of youngsters who have agreed to join the club. These are mostly players thrown up by our scouts. I have all my scouts set to scout within our scouting range youth players and just, you know, I keep an eye on what they throw up. You can see here, we've got a real variety of players thrown up by our scouts. Many in Spain, actually. Some French players, a German player I noticed as well. I feel like this has served us really well, just this kind of shotgun approach to our scouting. There's probably some good players here who I should take a look at, but that's really where I see us swinging with our money. I have talked about Jibbo as a player we could sign in goal. I've decided not to go for him, everyone, just because of that inconsistency. It scares me too much, unfortunately, so I don't think it's going to be happening. In terms of board requests that I'm thinking about for next year, I think when the facilities are upgraded, we go in with the same request again. You know, just want to get it up half a star at a time as much as possible. That really has got to be the big aim. In terms of, you know, youngsters breaking through to the first team next year, keep an eye out for Garrido for sure. The reality is that this year, most of the players who you'd expect to break through have broken through and are now first team players. Someone like Turnbull, expect to see him a lot. I guess Shvetsov would be my player I'm most excited about going into the new year. And in terms of my prediction for next year, I am going to say, bold prediction perhaps, I think between Shvetsov and Turnbull, those two players will get a combined 30 goals for the season. So I'm expecting 15 goals for both Shvetsov and Turnbull. Now, of course, if Molyneux just locks down a first team spot, that might become a little bit more difficult. But I don't know, I feel like as a strike partnership, they're quite complementary, different styles, but could work really nicely together. Not dissimilar age group as well. And I don't know, I think they've got something about them. I want to ship them together. I want to make it work, I suppose. So that's what I'm going to go with. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this end of season review for me. A bit of a weird one this year because I don't see us spending a load of money. I feel like a lot of this pre-season is just going to be, you know, more of the same, you know, looking for youngsters where we can, just continuing to build for that longer term success. Next year is going to be challenging for sure, but I feel very, very prepared for it after that extra year in League One. And, well, hopefully you guys are excited for it coming your way tomorrow. So, yeah, that's going to be all from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It is me, Jack, and I will catch you guys for season number 10 coming your way tomorrow. I'm out.